Hi, it's Kristan from the City Savvy Show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really excited. I've been waiting for 7 months to have my next guest on, who is Sandra Barnes from DLC Lending, right here at Royal LePage Signature. Sandra is instrumental to our business and to our clients in getting mortgage financing. Sandra is one of the top mortgage agents, not only in the city, but in the country. And what I would like to ask you first, and you said, well, I don't really know how to, when I talked to you earlier, you said, how do I answer that? What makes you so different and one of the top mortgage agents in the country?
You know, well, first of all, thank you, Kristan, for having me here, because
Always a
I'm
pleasure.
really happy to be here and to be talking with you on mortgages. And so I think that maybe one of the main things is my experience. I have been in the business for a while, a long time, and I've worked at 2 different banks plus a mortgage broker. And as a mortgage broker, you know, we have access to over 30 different lenders. And I think that I have done over 3,000 approved applications. Wow. And that gives you a lot of experience, a lot of different scenarios, and I can bring that to the table when I'm working with the clients.
Do you remember the first time we met? You were sitting in front of me,
Yeah.
and you were wearing a lovely coat, and
Yes.
You really stood out of the crowd. And I tapped on your shoulder, and I said, "Are you in the banking industry?" And you turned around and you said, "How did you know that?" And I could just, so it pours out of you. I mean, I think what I've learned from you, and I won't say how many years, but what I've learned from you is that everything that you do is about other people. You are not for yourself. It's kind of like our motto is, we're here for you, not for ourselves. You know, the clients come first, right? And I think that's amazing. I think one thing that we have always felt, because you are our partner, is that you're there for our clients and not just for yourself. That's last. You're low on the totem pole when it comes to that. And I think that's what makes you one of the best in the industry.
Yeah, I've always had the idea that as long as I do the best job for the client, everything's all going to work out. And whether I get this deal or I don't get this deal,
Right,
isn't what's important. What's important is that overall I'm doing the best for the client that I feel I can at that time. And, you know, understanding where they are when they're coming to the table.
right.
And really putting yourself in their shoes and coming up with a solution that works for them.
And that's exactly what you want, is you want to be in their shoes. How do they feel, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is taking them down the road to successful financing. And we're going to talk about that because there's so many different avenues that people can take. Like you said, you deal with lots of lenders, and it's you're not limited to one bank, which is remarkable about being here at Dominion Lending. Right. Is the fact that there's opportunities for other lenders to help people out, whether it's A, B, or C.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So now we know who you are, what you do, why you do it so well. What we would like to talk about is, with the massive increase of home prices, there's a side effect to that.
Yeah.
That's increased equity.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
It is.
Right? So we're in a place now where people, we even have a home that has almost doubled in value since we purchased it 5 years ago this year, and we're going down the path with you currently to take equity out of our own Correct. Home to buy more doors. And so can you take us through those steps to Sure. help others out there? Because Sure. I think the purpose of doing these podcasts is to take something that I know, something that Sandra knows, and to share it with the public so that they know it's possible. Possibilities are everything, and we underestimate what we're capable of a lot of times, mm-hmm. and it's people like you that help open those doors. So take us down the road to refinancing.
Yeah, so actually, it's in today's market, almost everybody should be looking at what their rates are and what their equity is and getting that line of credit behind them. And I find that a line of credit is a great vehicle because even if you don't use it now, it prepares you. I always say that everything we do, it's about pre-planning is the key. and making sure that we're prepared. So there are many different things that you may want to do with a line of credit. One, it gives you security, for sure. But buying an investment property, there's no point in setting out to buy an investment property unless you've got, you've done all your pre-planning and have all your ducks in order. And a line of credit is a great vehicle for that. And if something happens, you decide that you don't want to proceed, going forward with buying a rental property, that's okay. Because with a line of credit, there's no cost to you unless you draw on it. So it really gives you opportunity, it gives you security, and it gives you that freedom and opportunity to go out and start looking. And we talk about buying rental properties. It could be a condo, it could be a second home, but it might even be a cottage. I know myself, I had a cottage, you have a vacation home, and best time of our life was having the kids at the cottage, and then when we sold, we made a lot of money on top of it.
Absolutely.
So it was great.
Good side effect.
Yeah.
And we never think about it, but when you have children, you might have 18 summers with those children, and then they're off. They've flown the coop. They come back eventually, I hear.
Yes.
I'm not quite there yet. But so, having these vacation properties are important, and having the line of credit to build generational wealth is super important. And I think having that line of credit is a great idea. So a lot of people say, okay, well, I'm just going to, I bank with RBC, so I'm just going to walk in the door and talk to their mortgage rep there and see what we can do. What is the difference between a bank pre-approval and a pre-approval from you?
Okay. So a lot of times with pre-approvals, the documentation is not reviewed. So, and it's the information that you give to the lender. So you give this information to the lender, and then the lender says, oh, based on that information, this is what you would be pre-approved for. But if they haven't reviewed the documentation, if they haven't asked the right questions, because you, as a borrower, you don't know the guidelines, they do, but if they're not asking the right questions, then you may be given a wrong amount that you're pre-approved for. Of course, there's rates and things like that, but there's a lot more involved. The other thing is different lenders have different guidelines on the pre-approval. How does the how does the average borrower know which bank has which guidelines and which one they qualify for? So when you come to a mortgage broker, we have access to many different lenders, and we have the ability to know which ones you're going to be approved at, which ones are going to give the best rates.
And that's, and we could talk about best rates in a moment, but you took us down that road where you said, okay, well, you might as well go here because they're giving us the best rate with the best package possible. And a lot of times we talk about bank pre-approvals, and when I see them, I'm like, okay, this is not worth the 5 cents the paper it's printed on. So we don't even, unless we get the green light from you to say, okay, you can get in the car and drive to where our people qualify and they can actually buy a home, we won't take the buyers out until we know that you've had that conversation with them. And this is what you've said too, even if you don't do the deal, you've greenlit it for us.
Yes.
And so you've offered this invaluable service free of charge, right? Because there are mortgage agents out there that I've heard charge thousands of dollars. And to me, I always say, if they're charging you upfront fees, there's something not right. Right? So, and so we've built a business of honesty, and integrity, and whoever whether it be a home inspector, our broker of record, which is our president and CEO, Chris Lightham, we've chosen to align ourselves with people that have integrity, and that's where you've come in, and our clients have been well served by you, and so we really, we tell people, listen, you don't have to use Sandra, but it's best that you talk to Sandra, have the conversation with her, right?
Yeah, and the other thing too, Kristan, sorry for interrupting here, but I mean, many times there's been situations where they have an existing mortgage somewhere else and the penalty is going to be too much to break, and it doesn't make sense. And I redirect them back to the lender they have and guide them as to what to say and what to do to get the approval.
Right.
and they come back to me when their mortgage matures, right?
So that
yeah.
honesty pays off. And I've been talking myself out of business for the last 6 months because I'm telling people not to sell their homes, take money out to buy new construction or a cottage or another property just to add doors to their portfolio. And so the conversation changes as the market changes. Our market has obviously changed. We have to adapt, and so our clients have to also adapt to it. So we talk about, like, I was just reading in the paper today that the Bank of Canada, in 30 years, we've hit the highest inflation that we've ever seen in 30 years, since I think 91, and that was in December. And people are worried about inflation and how terrible it is, but inflation kind of is a side effect of a good economy, right?
Correct.
And then now they're talking that maybe on the 26th, the Bank of Canada may raise the interest rates, but that's okay. People get afraid of higher interest rates. People will say, well, I get a better rate over here, or I'll get a better rate over here. But people who are locked into let's say a variable rate, 1.5% variable rate mortgage, they might start panicking and say, well, I better lock in at 2.9%, and so that I'm safe. But that doesn't make sense, does it? Can you explain why that doesn't make sense?
Yes, for sure. So and everyone is an individual, and they come to the table with their own hopes, their own plans, their fears. And it's really about conversation and finding out what is comfortable for the client and where their comfort level is. I always tell people no decision is really a wrong decision. It's really about working it out and looking at the pros and cons of both. And so one of the things I tell people right now, or we have the conversation about, is on variable rates. So if you have 1.5% and lock-in is 2.9, there is talk that the variable rate, the prime rate, may go up 1%. But even if it goes up 1%, you're still only going to be at 2.5%. So 2.5% versus 2.9, why would you do it? So I guess the question will be, what are your plans? What are your fears? What do you think will happen with the interest rates? Because no one does have that crystal ball for sure. There's been talk anywhere from no increases to 0.75 to 1 and a quarter,
right.
and I think one person is predicting 1.75.
Right.
But no one really knows 100%. So it's really having the conversations and working through all of that and making the best decision for you. There are great reasons to be in a variable rate mortgage. One is it's usually a lower interest rate, and also too, if you ever need to break the mortgage, it's usually only a 3-month interest penalty. Where if you go into the 5-year fixed rate, your payments are stable, but if you have to break it, there's penalties, and it's usually a bit higher as well.
Sure.
So it's working through all of that and figuring out where your comfort level is.
And you kind of answered, that was going to be one of my questions to you, and you probably get this question every day, that what is better, a variable rate mortgage or a fixed mortgage? And you said it, it's whatever you feel comfortable. It's a personal decision, right?
It is. Nobody has the crystal ball.
Right.
None of us. Yeah.
Exactly, because we all want to sleep at night.
Yes.
And so if you feel like you've made the wrong decision, that's not a good thing. So there's where your guidance comes in hand, right?
And some people, it's because for their budgeting, they don't want their payment changing every month.
Sure.
So we do have variable rate mortgages where your payment doesn't change. So there's lots of flexibility, lots of conversations to have.
So that's a great question too. What are the metrics between a quarter point, a half point? How does that translate into dollars?
Yeah. So a quarter point, depending on whether you're doing your amortization. So on a 30-year amortization, a quarter point for every $100,000 is going to be about $11 a month. And if you're on a 25-year amortization, it's going to be about $13 a month.
Right.
So if you have a $400,000 mortgage, a quarter point could be $44 a month.
Wow. So it's not really a big deal. It's not, and with today's stress test too,
Yeah.
right? So that's another thing is with the current stress test, you have to qualify at
5.25%.
5.25%
today.
And so that quarter point or half point difference is not going to change things for you, right?
No, qualifying won't change at all with the increases because the stress test, how it works is that your contract rate plus 2% or the benchmark that's set out for the day.
Right.
And right now, your rate plus 2% is going to be less than the benchmark. So it is not going to really change at this point the qualifying at all.
I know Scotiabank, the economists with Scotiabank, they're predicting 2% benchmark by the end of the year.
I think they've changed to 1.75.
So they've wow. So they're changing their minds, but I think that's a little bit alarmist, right? I know they really want to slow the inflation. I think the problem being is that we have a shortage of people to work, and we need as many people as we possibly. We could bring the city of Calgary into Canada, and we wouldn't have enough people, to work the jobs that we are creating right now. And so inflation, like I said, is a good side effect. And interest rates, I think the Bank of Canada is making some good decisions, and they are anchored. I believe that they have anchored in that they will make some good decisions for us. And I think around the globe, everybody is in the same boat. We all have debt. There's global debt, and all the governments around the world are going to have to make good decisions, right?
Yeah.
What do you foresee?
Honestly, I will tell you that the stress test, they brought that, I'm trying to think of when they brought it back in, but it's been probably 4 years now,
Right.
5 years, I think. But there was always other
Was it
qualifications.
April, May, or June of 2017, if I'm not mistaken?
But
Right.
I'll tell you, they've always had other qualifications as well. And here's the thing is that when I talk with a client, one of the most important things is what is the monthly payment? And, even though you're qualifying at 5.25%, when we talk about monthly payments and what you qualify for at 5.25%, people don't really want to go too much higher. They're quite happy with it. So I'm not feeling that having the stress test has caused difficulties for the clients. They're happy with the amounts they're getting approved for. And it really is about the monthly payments.
Right.
And really with that stress test, if rates go up a little bit, people can always afford a little bit. I find that overall, Canadians, they're really conservative. They're not going to go in over their head, and they're managing their debt very well.
Right.
And they have room. If rates were to go up, they have room.
Right, and I look at when I got into real estate, how high the rates were, and before then, even at my first mortgage was 8-9%.
Yeah, lock in at 9.75%.
Right.
My goodness,
Right, absolutely, and so that was normal. I mean, but we still did it. A lot of people say, "I'll never be able," or children will never be able to buy, but when I bought, it was expensive and it seemed unattainable. And when I got past my first 2 condos and I finally bought a house, I lived in the basement and I rented upstairs so that I could afford the home.
Absolutely.
And so that was very self-serving, but it got me somewhere. And back to the qualifying part of it, an aspect of it, in today's market where there are multiple offers absolutely everywhere, and we talked about green lighting and being properly qualified, is that when there are multiple offers, there's usually anywhere between 20 and 30 offers on any given property on any given day in the GTA and around the GTA. Properties are selling for record amounts, and it's very important that we have a strategy in place to actually be the one out of the 31 bids that actually wins. And so when we do that, it's important to be properly qualified because we have to kind of take a little bit of risk.
Yes.
Because we have to get a house today, we have to pay more than we think we have to pay. So you have to have that kind of room because there is, even though appraisers today understand what's happening with the market and they're giving a little bit more room because they understand the complexities of what's going on in today's market, it could not appraise the property. So what happens then when the property doesn't appraise?
Well, what I really enjoy working with you on is when we have those situations, we have conversation. And that is, again, while you're doing the offer, we're constantly in contact with each other, with the client, and it's how much can the client afford? The client can afford this. Kristan, how much is the property going to appraise at? What's the lowest amount this could appraise at? And we work it out, and we figure out if everything's going to be okay. And if we think that there is an issue, that maybe it might not, then we go back to the client and we talk about what other resources do you have, just in case. And if there isn't other resources, and this is like, I just really, really appreciate this so much. If there isn't other resources, we're at the limit, and I say, we need to do a condition. You guys go out and do the offer, and you do it with the condition, and you get the deal.
Right.
Not very often does this happen, but sometimes it does, and it works. And that way, it's a win-win for us, for the client, for the seller, for the buyer, for everybody.
Right, because we're protecting
We are.
protecting the buyers,
Yeah.
and actually we're protecting the sellers, even if they're not our clients. We want to make sure the deal closes.
No matter what.
That's key. We had a situation where we were the listing realtors, and it was a tear-down house, and they went for a conventional mortgage. The buyers, not our buyers, our sellers, and the deal didn't close. And this was back in December of 2021. And because there was no kitchen, there was no bathrooms, they were going for it was a tear-down house. They didn't go for a building loan. They went for a conventional mortgage, and that was very problematic. The realtor led them down the wrong path, and so obviously he was a mortgage broker as well, the realtor, and obviously he said he wanted to actually put in a kitchen and a bath into this house that wasn't closed yet, and we couldn't do that, obviously. Eventually it closed, luckily, but it's so, I have to stress, it is so important that you deal with the proper mortgage agent, you do your research. Google is a great friend of ours. All over the world, we can really depend on Google to find out the ratings of who we're dealing with, what other people think. You have to find the right person, really navigating, because like I said, there's over 60,000 realtors in the city. Not all of them are created equal. I'm sure there's a big number. I don't know what the number of mortgage agents are. I'm not sure I'm sure it's quite high, because I get emails every day from many of them. I deal with one, and that's you, just because there's a trust there, and I think trust is everything. So when you go to buy a home, make sure that you find the right mortgage agent. Sandra actually worked for a bank, a big bank. Two big banks, I know both of them, and there was a point where Sandra, sometimes the banks would want to lend money at certain rates, they'd be competitive, sometimes they weren't competitive, so we kind of made a decision as business partners to say, hey, you might have to look at a different avenue. And then I think I introduced you to the world of the Slidums. And then with Adam Cadell, you came on board, and I think that was the best decision that you made as a mortgage agent, and for us it became a little bit of a pain in the butt for you, because we're 20 doors down from you, and so
great, though.
it is great, and I can come knocking on your door, and you're like, oh no, it's Kristan, or it's Jay Sell, right? Because Jay Sell's always there knocking on the door. Sandra, can we go ahead with it? Can we put in a $5 million bid? We're only qualified for $250. But it's great. It's the symbiotic relationships that are built with professionals that we want you to embrace, and somebody like Sandra could really, really, really help you. I think it's important to remember that through research, through word of mouth, I think we need to help you find people that can help you find home ownership. And so today, I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you,
for being my
Kristan.
guest. You were marvelous. I have to say, all of our guests have been amazing, but for 7 months I've been waiting. It was January that I wanted to get you in because we're coming into the spring market. So if you haven't been pre-qualified and you want to learn more about refinancing your home or even buying a new home.
The other thing that I want to say too,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Of course.
Is that right now there's a lot of people who own their existing home and they want to move. And with COVID and working from home and kids have been at home, the idea of selling your home and getting it ready to go on the market, incredibly stressful. So what I've been doing recently is speaking with people, getting our good old lines of credits ready so that we can, do the work that you have to do to get the home ready to sell, to get it on the market. And, that relieves some of the stress. But of course, the other thing that we've been able to do is some people have been able to move into the home that they want and then sell their home afterwards because they've got so much equity in the home. So not everybody is the same, but that's, those lines of credits are very, very helpful, and everybody's circumstances is different. But if you have an existing home and you're thinking about selling, definitely pre-planning is still key.
And it's
Always.
A conversation they need to have, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And contacting you. Remember, it's just a conversation. You're not signing anything. We don't show up at your door with paperwork. We don't send you a DocuSign saying, "Hey, sign here right away." It's just a conversation,
Yeah.
and get that conversation started, because if you don't, I had a banker once tell me that you're really undervaluing yourself. There is, you really should kind of extend yourself a little bit more. You're playing it a little bit too safe, and that was great advice, because I live now in a great custom home in a great neighborhood, and I remember, even though back then I didn't use you, I marched you into my bank. My banker looked at me and was like, "Oh my, what's going on here?" And I said, "This is my mortgage agent, Sandra Barnes." And
She's going to negotiate for me.
She's going to negotiate, and she actually negotiated a deal for me. It was incredible, and they were blown out of the water. And I think there was 3 employees that came in because they wanted to see what the heck was going on. So this is a powerful relationship, a powerful person to have on your side, and I strongly recommend starting the conversation and talking to Sandra. And I, like I said, I appreciate you coming in. I've been waiting for 7 months for you to do so. I think this was the right time, because the spring market is coming, and it's going to be a good one, and it's going to be a busy one. So thank you very much. If you've taken one seed out of this, I hope something to take home, and hopefully you can start investing more and building your generational wealth. And thank you for watching, and I hope you tune in the next time. My name is Kristan, and this is The City Savvy Show.